And there is a lot going on here in Atlanta today. One of those huge events, SNAP Advocacy Day at the Georgia State Capitol. Advocates from across the state are meeting with lawmakers to gather and talk about the importance of supplemental nutrition assistance programs, also known as food stamps. Joining us now to discuss the impact of SNAP and the No Empty Plates Coalition is Staci Fox, President and CEO of the Georgia Budget and Policy Institute. Staci, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Caitlin, thanks for having me.
It's great to be with you here today. We want to make sure that we highlight the message that you're hoping to bring to advocates and lawmakers. What do you really want them to hear today?
Well, we were really excited to see in Governor Kemp's budget this year money to cover the administrative cost shift that came from H.R. 1 back to the state to support the SNAP program as it exists now, as well as about $18 million additional dollars to help reduce the error rate. We have to remember the budget is a bill, and that bill doesn't usually get passed until the very last minutes of legislative session. So we're at the Capitol. Actually, I'm headed there after we finish today to talk to our lawmakers to remind them how important SNAP is for about 1.4 million Georgians.
That is so many people, Staci, 1.4 million Georgians. This really does impact so many. Who are the people who you want to make sure are highlighted in this discussion, whose voices are really heard?
Well, today we'll have joining us people who are recipients of the SNAP program. And, you know, Caitlin, SNAP's been around since 1964. This is a public safety net benefit that helps put food on the tables and feed our kids and our elderly and families across the state of Georgia. And they'll be there to make sure their voices get heard to lawmakers.
So important to make sure that we hear from the people who this is directly impacting. What are the biggest threats or policy challenges that SNAP is facing right now across the state and in the federal budget?
Okay, I'm so glad you asked that question. I think one of the things we fight against every day is this idea of waste, fraud, and abuse. Mistakes or error rates that we see in SNAP that have to do with program costs are not fraud. These are mistakes made by caseworkers who have really high workloads and SNAP recipients who have really busy lives and inconsistent earnings. So that's one thing we want to fight against while we're talking to lawmakers today.
Yeah, that's an important part that you highlight there. And what happens to communities when SNAP benefits are reduced or become harder to access, especially in rural areas?
Yes, such a good question, Caitlin. I mean, SNAP isn't just about putting food on people's tables. It's also about the grocers who provide the food and our farmlands around the state that provide the food to the grocers. This becomes a domino effect when folks aren't able to access SNAP, and we saw that when the government shut down last year. So that is certainly not something we want to repeat, and really thrilled to see Governor Kemp put the money in the budget that is so needed to maintain this program.
I know the advocacy work you do goes on all year. You pour so much time and energy into it. And then you get to the Capitol, and legislators don't always have the time to give back, to hear all of the points that you're making here. If you could only make one point to legislators, what is the most important thing that they need to hear?
The most important thing is that we need to keep the governor's about $50 million in the budget to support the SNAP program due to the administrative cost shift from H.R. 1, and about the $18 million in the budget to reduce SNAP error rates.
Yeah, that is super important. Can you talk a little bit about what message people who receive SNAP are hoping that lawmakers hear?
Yeah, I mean, I think folks who rely on SNAP literally rely on these the safety benefit to put food on their table and feed their families. And I think that's what lawmakers will hear today from SNAP recipients, is that this is something that they rely on. And, you know, Caitlin, when benefits go away, like SNAP, when the government shut down, then families are really forced to make hard decisions between things like putting food on their table and medication that somebody in the family might really need, or daycare so that someone can go to work. These are cost determinations or decisions that families should not be burdened with. And we're glad to see the state step up, and we want to see them hold the line in the budget.
And we did see so much impact with the government shutdown. We saw people who weren't receiving their benefits coming to us every day saying, you know, please, can you help? Can you do something about this? I think if you're not familiar with SNAP, you might not recognize how direct that impact is for people who don't receive this assistance when they are relying on it. Can you just talk about how catastrophic this is for families?
Yeah, I mean, SNAP really is like a loaded credit card when folks go to the grocer to buy food for their families. And when that card doesn't have money on it, they can't spend it, right? And so the grocer can't sell money and the families can't buy food for their families. And there's no other way to make this up. You know, a lot of people think, well, the food banks could step in, and yes, they are there and part of the safety net, and they are so important. But for every meal that a food bank provides across the state of Georgia, SNAP provides 7 meals. SNAP is so important, and that is not a hole that our food banks or any other safety net program could fill.
That is an astounding statistic. Just lastly, if you had to clear up one misconception that people might have about SNAP, what is it?
Well, I would go back to the waste, fraud, and abuse, Caitlin. I hear that from so many lawmakers who, or the sort of bootstrap mentality. You know, these are programs to help our families, and I think that is part of our responsibility as a government is to help take care of families when they're hungry or when they need health care. So those are things that we want to combat, and reasons why we bring folks who are recipients of SNAP and the SNAP benefit to the Capitol so that we can put a face to the program. I always think that makes such a difference to lawmakers.
It really does. Staci, thank you so much for your advocacy, all of the time, effort, and heart you put into this. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Caitlin, and thanks for having me today.